What's happening, YouTube? I was watching apparently the rebel media has come to some point where it is I don't know, they have some beef with some end of the alt-right, the white nationalists. Okay, get used to white nationalism. Get used to it. Here's why. If you don't like it, it is because your team, or your collective has set them up to be extant. You made this enemy, or your collective, or your parents' collectives. In some way, you're bound. You're bound to it. And now there's nothing you can do. See, I have I take it honestly because I'm at that point. I'm one of those people in society who can be like, oh no, I know the black people want their own country. A gang of them want their own country. Hell of them want their own country. They talk about it all the time. Been talking about it since the 60s and 50s. And then you look back, oh no, it turns out they've been talking about it since like the 1800s. Oh no, there's a place called Liberia. Oh, you start finding out these things. You're like, oh, so no, black nationalism has been a kind of a norm that politics has loosely sort of played down enough, because once the argument even begins to go there, there's somebody who argues then the logical contraposition. Oh, well, if there would therefore be a separation, but so the blacks would separate from the whites, making a white nation. See, and nobody wants to deal with this, that this is still existent. This thinking still exists. Look up on Wikipedia. I think it's called the Black Belt. This is an idea that is widely espoused by black nationalists and now socialist organizations that are extraordinarily normal. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is an umbrella funder, or at some stage getting funded in parallel with groups like Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Movement, via, like, I think Ford, Carnegie Mellon, that kind of funding or something like that, Soros. They're all getting all this. They're all these nonprofits, and they are trying to separate the races through some weird socialist system. They're literally trying to create a form of ethno-nationalist socialist bunch of separate states to address historic wrongs. Either your group is for the republic, which now the liberals have to ask. The liberals, not even the progressives, who even know, that's an amorphous cloud of glitter and stink, and fog machine. It's like glitter, fog machine, and a fart. You can't fence it. There's nothing there. All you know is it's all over you at some point when you've been around it. The problem that the liberals now have is what binds the people, what binds the polis, if not the ethnos. What are you? It was a relatively uncomplicated ethno state, and then it became more and more complicated, and now the Democrats want it to be extraordinarily complicated. For some reason, the Democrats have this bizarre idea. Societies with extremely complicated ethnographies are incredibly successful. Like, they get things done very, very, very well and very efficiently, and that's not true. So what ends up happening, liberals, so you truly understand, if there is no ethnos that people are bound by, where they could then form, they can be among one another. The Chinese kids go to Chinese school after normal school. So there's that which is supposed to teach them about being a good citizen in the republic. Well, but you're running out of options now. And this is what a bunch of people on the right started to see. What the only thing you have is a thing where the kids are trained to be a part of the gendarmes. That's all you got in the long run. That these kids will be trained to become good citizens of the republic, and this means it will be like military school, because there will be nothing else that anybody could conceive in common, because all their different groups have such vastly different histories. But everybody knows what a soldier looks like. Military training is just simply scientific organization and training to certain standards. So no, they'll be there and they'll all wear uniforms. No, your kids will they'll lose everything. And so you might as well understand that a near future where people will end up very openly identifying as extremely Orthodox Catholic. And what that will mean is that they're very white. They will identify as very, traditional, some type of Baptist or Mormon or something. And you will know what you're seeing. You will know what they mean. This does not mean they have a problem with you. You only get the reflection back you want. They keep backing up. They keep backing up and saying, would you please leave us alone? The cosmopolitan agenda that was made popular by the EU and their economic model, and then all these baby boomers from America go over there and they have their 20s in their late teens or their 20s. They visit Europe, and there's this beautiful kind of cosmopolitanism. Well, no, it's that they met people who travel from country to country in Europe. They didn't meet a bunch of super normal Europeans, or maybe they did, and they actually really do appreciate, no, Europeans actually from region to region are incredibly different because they've been there so long, like any country that's been there a long time. And they really get like, no, the EU is only as good as long as it holds up, and people really see this as valuable, which they've tried this many times. They've tried to make an empire of it all, and it's failed over and over again. It's one of those tenuous things, organizing a lot of different people. The alt-right gets all of this. They're the only ideological group that's really discussing the differences between people. The total honest differences from Volk to Volk to Volk to Volk to Volk. And people need to frickin' get this. You're going to have to start getting used to these people. Their thinking is only starting to move. This is a dynamo, or not even a dynamo. What do you call it? This is a charge building. You don't want an arc light. Because all you need is somebody. You just need somebody who is a Richard Spencer, who doesn't get punched in the face but dodges the fist, points and laughs as the guy falls down. Like you don't want that guy. You don't want like a golden one to go on a public publicity rampage. And these people keep trying to invite. They keep putting their head in the fucking mouth of the gator. They keep fucking with the lion. The lion gets sleepy, and they keep fucking with it. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you people? You just need to get used to the white nationalists exist. They have their arguments. They mostly want to be left alone. And this is one of the key things, is that it is the discussion of also whiteness. Nobody's discussing, I really love, nobody's discussing Han-ness. Nobody wants to talk about that. Don't talk about Han-ness. No. There's no Chinese-ness. No. Don't talk. No. They're not colonizing the world. They're not actually physically colonizing the world. No. You see, it's not like a thing that they've never done before, and they're suddenly doing. Oh, no, don't talk about that. Oh no, don't talk about that. The only time we've ever seen the diaspora of the Ummah ever spread like this, the Islamness, Muslimness, faithfulness, whatever, believerness, no. Oh, you mean like when they tried to take over Europe before, and they didn't even get this far, anywhere near this far, actually, for hundreds of years, because they were fighting with Europeans for hundreds of years on European soil. That's why there's a thing called a castle. It wasn't because there's a bunch of white people who were fighting them. No, it was because there was a bunch of brown people who were fighting them. Oh no, there's no such thing as Muslimness. No, you see, the whiteness is the problem. They build castles and defend themselves from Moorish invaders and extinction. They recognize they are different from other people, and at some point say, no, that's rather different, and that's offensive to all sorts of people. I think maybe one of the things about the white nationalists is once you face this glowing white wall, it is so bright, it doth showeth too much. So then you doth protesting too much about white nationalism. Because you see, there's no books written by Jews and published in white nations, right? No, they don't allow that. No, they don't allow those people to even own a book. No, they keep them shoveling only the poopy. They don't even allow them to shovel the poop. They only allow them to shovel the poopy of dogs. They don't, right? That's what the deal is. The Jews only are allowed to cut the topiary, right? What are all these brown people that are coming in to all the white nations? The white nationalists got a problem with taking all the topiary jobs. Dang, because white people can't cut their own topiary, especially white nationalists. They can't cut their own topiary, right? That's what the deal is here. That's what all these socialist parties are really about. I mean, no, they're not socialists. They're good, progressive, liberal, whatever. They remember the dream and the idealism of cosmopolitanism, where anybody could go to any city and they could speak city speak, I guess, and that we'll all be one brown people flying to and fro from city to city, taking the electric air train, and living a green lifestyle, all smiling constantly, cheeky and chummy. Because then you see, by that time, the problem of whiteness will have been solved. They would have ended the Volk. There will be no people. There will be these people who only remember the last product release. They'll only remember the last movie made by the creative class, the artists who are the culture. They tell us who we are, all of us. They tell the blacks, like you see Color Purple, that's how it went. So much like that. It was actually just like that all the time, every day, constantly for everybody. Juice, that's what the 90s was. How do you know? That was me. I had the juice. I decided to move to Oregon because I was just bawling too hard. Standing on the corner yelling bass rocks, nigga. You see, I mean, straight out of Compton, that was the story of a generation. Get used to white nationalism, because most of the people who have a problem with it will inevitably expose themselves as kind of phonies. that they don't quite know. They don't have a type of thinking that could grasp the future. One of the reasons I got back into Christianity is there were certain things that made me think about Taoism and Christianity for a long time, having certain dovetailing issues. One being, at some point, only individuals can develop their integrity and their harmony with the way. There's many ways of doing this. The ways of doing this are passed on to us through the wisdom of our ancestors. There are various things that cause you to lose harmony with the way. So those are not wise ways. And you should push those aside and stick with that which is truly wise and the best pieces of wisdom. This is really something that the Christian world has. It had this. This has been erased within one generation. The many traditions, the many little details of life, such that, let me really make this clear. I am super crypto Jewish. I love watching rabbis talk about Jewish culture and the secrets of the Zohar and all the little details of their rituals. I love it. I just totally dig it because they're these really old traditions that some of which are just, it makes no sense at all. And it really takes like about a year of learning stuff that you realize like how it's this little thread that weaves itself into the cloth of a people's life. And that it's just like, wow, that's an odd little detail. You lean on your left and you raise the right hand when you are drinking the wine like a king. You lie on your left and raise your right hand like a king. And I was sitting there and I'm like, yes, like all the statues of the great kings of the Indo-European tradition, their right hand is raised, their left hand falls. All the nobles, all the conquerors, whether it was the Buddha or whether it was Sol Invictus. And I'm like, yeah, wow, okay, and this is what you do on Shabbat. This specific Shabbat. This is this one tradition where you're drinking the wine and it's in memory, and in this bitter memory, you drink your wine like a king. It really, like the bitter and the sweet balanced out in this way that I'm like, that is what a people do. Because I'm so familiar with some bits and pieces of Chinese cinema and the varieties of Chinese culture. There's things, and I was really into for a while, specifically Buddhist monks and stuff. So I've read a lot of Buddhist monk poetry and various and like the art of writing and stuff like that. And so there's just things that can't be explained. That you have to write pages about this word. It's like, okay, this word is very difficult to really sum up why it's important. And people have to explain this now. And they can. Both are the bitter. It's bitter and sweet. They have to explain some of these things because there's so few people still literate in that language that actually remember why that word has the import it does, or why that was used the way it was. And this is the same in English. This is just how it is. And really, we're at the end of an era. Technology has changed so much so that now we can explain to each other these fine points of language, these concepts from, how a culture generates an idea in relationship to its geography, its time, and the people around it, and how they've interacted. Because that takes time, because it's not instantaneous, because culture truly cannot be generated by a class of some priesthood of of weirdos who act like other people and and talk about mostly their dysfunctions when it comes to what they talk about as individuals in interviews. Um, it's rarely like they talk about. I've rarely heard anything about like sort of famous people talking about great thespians that they had studied with or great singers that they had studied with for a while to master their voice or some like I always wonder who did Patrick Stewart train under. I don't like his politics, but I admire his abilities. He's really quite impressive. I don't really have to. I could respect his politics in this way because I can admit that which is good. This is the issue, really, at the heart of people who have an issue with white nationalism and the white nationalists. Obviously, there's some group that they must call themselves white because they're being identified in opposition to others as this, whether they sort of want to be in the group or not, because there's all these people who aren't white nationalists and are white, but they don't plan to, say, intermarry with anybody. But they, like many of the white nationalists, are like, well, you'll intermarry with who you're going to intermarry with, because there's many people who are, say, Nordic white nationalists. They consider the Italians quite different, and that would be correct. They even have this trouble among themselves when it comes to forming any kind of militant, centralized movement. Hence them not any longer forming a militant, centralized movement, and then being this amorphous thing online that's actually quite brilliant in its writing, because they've started to have to identify what actually makes Europeans so obviously and profoundly different. Or say the Buddhist monk who invented the astrolabe, why don't we talk about him? It's because how people interact with their environment during their time and with neighboring people. We know about the European printing press and the European astrolabe because they really wanted people to know about the astrolabe, such that the term astrolabe is the term we use, and even the Chinese have to say astrolabe because they'd forgotten this person had made an astrolabe. That's what happens, liberals, when you have the socialist revolution. Your people forget they invented the printing press and the astrolabe, and they have to ask the neighboring capitalist nation how to grow rice again. Look that one up. The Chinese had to find out a lot from the Okinawans and the Japanese about a lot of things, such as fundamental medicine and growing crops and crop rotation. It was actually a part of a deal sort of made between the communist Chinese government and various other groups in our government to keep them kind of from totally collapsing, from it being total and complete decimation of the Chinese population. The cities, the polities, they can get by for a little while, but they aren't creating the culture. The Trump movement, this Trump thing that's happened, has shown people this horrible truth that there are a group of white people and that they finally have started to possibly see themselves as a group. And, well, as compared to who and compared to what? The reason why the black on white, black on Asian, black on Latino violence is not being talked about as a phenomena of that sort is because there has to remain this thing of No, no, no. Do not see yourself as compared to whom and compared to what during your time, your interrelationship between other people, because then you'll start to balance the economics and there will be flight, like white flight happened. The economics told them that they needed to go to another space because of where they were during that time and the interrelations they started to have with people who had moved there. And nobody really wants to discuss that, even though it was made obvious in culture that the cultural creators, you just don't see a lot of these 70s television shows where you see the hip black man of the 1970s. Yeah, people don't watch enough blaxploitation. They really don't know enough about old television to know, like, wow, it's not that that was so much racist as, no, really, that was reflecting something that obviously some people somewhere thought was totally resonated with Americans, such as the black dude with an afro who's talking hella jive. That, no, people encountered people like that. It's not that they did not encounter people like that. It's not everybody was Sam Cooke. People need to stop. And I think it's just kind of funny now that a lot of the white nationalist stuff, it's just is like, oh no, no, don't discuss that. No, it's like, because I mean, Irish Catholics, like Irish Americans, they're proudly Irish Americans. Nobody wants to touch that one. Democrats can't. The Democrats have forgotten they exist. Since the Kennedys have moved on, they're like, oh, yes, we are very Irish. Yeah, and anyway, it's like they moved on. Irish Americans have been forgotten. Somewhere they exist. Somewhere they have a political outlet, but I mean, nobody's really paying attention to them anymore, are they? Because you see, they're a part of the white people now. And the Democrats aren't interested in white people. Not anymore. They're interested in those people who don't want to be white. They're good, upstanding progressives and liberals. And that's nice. That's very nice, but it's the center the center will not hold. And I really suggest, for a lot of you liberals and progressives, you start understanding the language of people you don't like, because you want to think them toothless barbarians. And I see what that got Rome when they were. See what it got them when they didn't know how to make a deal in German. And, they did know Visigoth. So, it's hard to tell people, please don't kill me and my family, when you can't speak Visigoth, So you better start understanding that the white nationalists, versus this cosmopolitan dream of Star Trek, this is just silliness. These people aren't some real group that's going to come marching down the street one day, with Pepe pins on and shit like that. I mean, you're just goofballs. Stop being goofballs. This is the real world. You created this monster. I mean, to some degree, I see the whole reason I'm doing this is this is my confessional. I was once on the left. I probably said something that made a person go, whoa, what a dick, and put them in the, who knows what mood it put them in, that I didn't try to convince them. I was just dickish. And I didn't know the numbers. I didn't know the metrics. I didn't know the history of that issue. And so now I want to make sure people who are liberals and progressives, you all better start trying to figure out weigh the high metaphysics of what you actually believe, of where you get your list of ethics from, because you have now started to come up with something that is beyond ethics. that this certain concept of like existential whiteness must be dealt with. And now you're starting to get into some weird shit, and you don't know the history of goofy ass, amorphous, semi philosophical, mystical, ethno bullshittery. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go to the world of Dr. Jakob and the Turanian flying saucer people, and you don't want to fucking go there. Um, holy shit! And you all don't understand how your that's your I mean that is your that's your history. You don't get it, but you don't want to go back there. Um, get used to white nationalism. You better learn to actually appreciate some of these people for how they broach what they broach, and that they broach it with such class, like Red Ice TV. They are classy. They know what they are, and they believe in that. And there's just all these people, they want to think Cubans don't believe in being Cuban. Puerto Ricans don't believe in being Puerto Rican. The Dominicans don't believe in being Dominican. The Chinese, the Toisanese don't believe in being Toisanese. The Tibetans don't believe in being Tibetan. It's whose ethnicity, whose history do you get to like iron flat? Oh, no, 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 the whites, whatever they are. Because you see, it's not the Polish, it's not the Czechs, it's not the British. It's just some amorphous group and their whiteness. And there's just there's a lot of us who are too smart to buy it. Two, you would kill our parents. You would put them up against a wall and you'd shoot them, because one was a race traitor and the other was a race traitor. Three, it's your high metaphysics or whatever. This is just crazy shit that goes back to really like Garveyism and white Israelitism and silliness like that. And you haven't, yeah, it's silliness. It's really silliness. You've painted these people into a corner where they have now had to become a political movement because you've pointed out like, no, you openly target them for penalties. You want punitive action in law, in culture, in the social norms of the day. You want to actually punish white people for existing. That's bizarre. That isn't how a republic works. That is how a democracy works. That isn't how a republic can work. And the liberals, you all need to get that. You need to understand you have the republic. You and me, we still have the republic. It still stands. Whatever the progressives and their glitter fart, and then everybody left of that, those people will, whatever their utopian dream is, whatever their Frankfurt School dream is, I can't care because the republic must stand. That part of that much has to hold, because that's all there is. There will be no democracy. What democracy will look like will be the fundamentally that, yeah, Bosnia, the true white nationalists, the true real deal, the ones who are really organizing. When I first got into the left, the people who were really like, the government was really for a good reason looking into these people. And it turned out a lot of these people were members of the government. Now we know a lot more about why. America's Nazi Secret. Read it and know it. Because it has nothing to do with the people like Richard Spencer. It has nothing to do with Matt Forney. Has nothing on these kind of people. These people were from a different era, from a different level of power. They were doing different things, and now everybody's finding out, oh, they formed these organizations called, like, say, the NSA and CIA and shit like that to rip everybody off. So, Bosnia, that's all they need. They don't need success. They don't need to win. They just need Bosnia. If you don't know what I mean, just look it up. Just Wikipedia Bosnia. I remember. I remember when all that went down. It's truly terrifying watching women run from snipers in the street. You don't want it. That's the republic must stand. It must. For as long as it can, the republic must stand. And we're going to have to deal with the bitter truth that there is no money, and that it's going to take now another 50 years to regenerate the wealth that we could save the whole species from cold and hunger. This was really possible, and everybody allowed themselves to gamble and engage in vice and engage in this anti-whiteness agenda, and let the socialists take over and just leave the wheel to just leave the wheel. And we all just don't want to really talk about it. We really don't want to deal with the single mother generation. We don't want to deal with alimony as a way of retiring. We don't want to. There's all this stuff we can't handle because it's too painful. Because it's about our mama, our greasy granny, our weak ass daddy, our bunk ass friends, or that our broken sibling. There's all these things it's all been all written down before. It's a part of our tradition of wisdom, and we like being foolish, and we will pay for being foolish. So don't be a fool. Just get used to the white nationalists. Accept what is, because you're not going to stop it. I don't know why you think you're going to stop it. I'm going to push on this wall. I'm going to just keep pushing. This glows whiter the more I push on it.